a momentous report where we're seeing signs, at least, of profitability. That question has been answered resoundingly based on the data that you presented. I do want to know how much more potential there is in terms of growth, whether it's been gross merchandise value or profitability, because $11 billion is impressive, but how much further can we go in the next 5 years in terms of profitability here in Southeast Asia based on the metrics you're tracking?
Well, this was the first year we actually looked at profitability, so it's incredible that we've reached this milestone. Last year we introduced revenue, this year it's profitability. And what we see is tremendous growth, right? Double-digit growth on revenue, GMV, and profits, right? That is a sign of a very healthy ecosystem across the board. When we look at our forward projections for GMV, we haven't changed our forecast that we had set out several years ago, right? So we're still looking at the potential of $1 trillion by 2030, right? That for the GMV. And from our revenue and profitability, we continue to see that the strengths in this, there's no sign of anything other than strength in the near future. You mentioned online travel, already profitable. You have the online transport, profitable. You have online media, very great EBITDA margins. So there's some room in places like e-commerce, but you've seen also a strong clip because of video commerce and what's happening there. And you're seeing expansion into adjacent revenue models across the board. And so when we look at this, we're very optimistic about what we see to come.
So I want to zero in on online media, because when you look at the report again, these probably have the most standout EBITDA margins, some of the strong words. What is making these particular business models perhaps more robust or more successful as compared to some of their counterparts in the e-commerce space, for instance? And is content still basically king when you look at, based on the data that we're seeing?
Yeah, well, when you look at it, there's a number of components of this. There's online ads. Ads are a relatively mature business, but what you're seeing is now all of these sectors are embracing advertising in a new way, right? They're realizing that investment in advertising will help them reach the unit economics that they need and to be profitable. But it's also they're looking at areas like gaming and areas like subscriptions, right? You see across the board, online media is multiple things beyond ads as well. But they're looking at how do you give value to the customer, which means localized content. You see that with the video streaming platforms, localized content in local language, lots of investment in doing what's right for the customer, which then allows an increase in pricing, right? So this is where, when you deliver great value to customers in the way that they want it, then pricing can be increased, and that's why the margins look the way that they do.
So product and content still is indeed king. You brought up a while ago the gaming space as being one of these very interesting and very fast-growing sectors to watch. How has it transformed online media, and just how big of a deal are they, especially here in Southeast Asia? We're seeing more and more people going online, adopting, whether it be on PCs or mobile games, for instance.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you asked. I mean, I think there's clearly the consumption from users, but I think the story that's not understood is the developer ecosystem in Southeast Asia. 12% of all game downloads that happen globally have been built in Southeast Asia. That is phenomenal. It's actually 3x the share of GDP that we should have. Why is that happening? It's because you have really interesting ecosystems, particularly in Vietnam, but not just in Vietnam. You see the rise in Indonesia and in Thailand, Singapore, right here as well. And so the investment that's being made to export to the world great games, they're using really great AI tools where they're able to localize in languages and take their games everywhere in the world, and they're finding new models to build businesses, right? And so I think it's a very unknown fact just how big gaming is, not just on the consumption side, but on the developer side.